That is how the police announced their presence in the prominent house of Jiimmy Wanjigi in Muthaiga, with the wife pleading for her life on her knees.
Do not shoot me. Do not shoot me. Do not shoot. Do not shoot me. Do not shoot me in my house. Do not shoot me.
But when did this fight between Jiimmy Wanjigi and top government official begin?
7 years ago, right on these steps, had a similar incident and a similar press conference. We were bamboozled for 3 days. This time it has been for 2 days.
And all this were due to the allegations that Jiimmy Wanjigi was sponsoring the Kenya's protest, the Gen Z protest that has been going on for the last 3 months.
We have not been through. Who William Ruto arrest me for doing what? Funding Gen Z. Oh my God! Aje kama jana. I can fund. I have, in fact, when it began, I gave money towards people who are being arrested, right? And I was very public about it. Right? I sent a little money for people who needed bail. Okay? Anybody, in fact, many people are funding. They are funding water. They are funding toothpastes for tear gas.
Yes.
Right? I know people who've donated blood. In fact, if I had all the money, I would give them money to go out there and do it. Like yesterday. Why not? Yes. How many people are there? If I could pay them 10,000 shillings each to go out and do it, I would do it. Yes. What's wrong with you?
But when did the very man who supported the President William Ruto in 2013 become the very enemy of the current regime?
That this current regime of Uhuru Kenyatta, this is a home they know. It's a home they have visited. It is a home they have eaten with. They've eaten with my family. In fact, their government was formed in this home.
His company, Kwacha Group of Companies, has been involved in several significant infrastructure projects in Kenya.
SGR has been a fraud of monumental proportions. I'm very familiar with this project called SGR. I initiated that project under the Kibaki regime. We started that project in 2008, and that project was simply a private project. It had no government money, and we wanted to do private investment of a line from Mombasa all the way to Malaba. Simply a private investment, no taxpayers' money. Our costing out of our feasibility study and our technical study came to 55 billion shillings, all the way from Mombasa to Malaba. I suddenly saw somebody parachuting a project that had become government under the Ruto government of just Mombasa to Naivasha, amounted to 500 billion shillings. So the cost of the project is 500 billion. Chinese Exim Bank, that's the Chinese debt, say we are going to loan the Kenya government a total of 90% of that money. So Kenyans, you must raise 10%. 10% of 500 is 50 billion shillings. So us from our hard-earned taxes must pay 10% before they pay the 90%. So we did an audit of these amounts. Did the Chinese give us all the money that they said? Yes, they did. They gave all the money. It was paid directly to China Road and Bridge Company. So did Kenyans raise the 50 billion, which was 10% of 500, and did they contribute their share of 10%? We did the sums, right? And it's called self-raising finance, SGR grant from the Treasury. So 50 billion was supposed to move from Treasury to Kenya Railways and then to the contractor called China Road and Bridge. So we just did the math. It was not 50 billion that was paid. It was 644 billion shillings. So we paid for it with our own money and even more. And yet we took a loan and we are paying back that loan. China Road and Bridge for the building of SGR from Mombasa to Naivasha was paid a total of almost 1.2 trillion for a project of 500 billion according to the contract documents. So
now things escalated when Jiimmy Wanjigi started calling out the President William Ruto for the high level of corruption that is happening in his regime.
We have one problem in Kenya. We don't have three. One. And that is William Samoei Ruto. Kenya had borrowed 223 billion shillings between September to January. This, at the time, was about 62 million shillings per hour. In just February alone, when you saw the shenanigans with the Eurobond, the government added another 545 billion shillings to our debt.
How can we be baking the cake and we're struggling, and them who are consuming this cake we're baking are not struggling?
That's when you get to economic rights period, where we start asking ourselves, what kind of model is this? Are we working to serve the state, or is the state supposed to be serving us? These people who are in those offices believe they are bigger than you. They don't even understand they serve you. Do you understand? It's like the colonial mentality. A policeman here has still got the mentality, right, of the colonialist. Do you know a policeman during the colonial period was a watchman? They turned them into a police force to protect their property. Right? So we are the bad people, the Mzungu is a good one. A policeman today acts that way. He doesn't understand we are his boss, not the people in offices. Because the constitution is very clear. The people, the constitution, and state officers. In that order, the people are first. So, how are they making money? And we are suffering. And we are the producers of this cake.
With all this political unrest, Jiimmy Wanjigi only has one request to His Excellency, the President William Ruto.
You must distinguish between the personal and siasa. Siasa, wanaume ndo wanagombana nayo huku nje. You don't bring it to somebody's personal home. William Ruto, we can gombana huku nje. Siasa. Don't bring it to my home. In this home, you have assaulted my wife. You have assaulted my children, my Gen Z children. Those policemen assaulted them.